Welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another edition of the Spurs Chat podcast. In this edition, we'll be talking about Tottenham's defeat at the Vitality Stadium. Bournemouth 1, Tottenham Hotspur 0. As per usual, we're live on YouTube, on X, on Facebook, and of course Twitch. So please do get involved. Let us know how you are feeling right now as a Tottenham Hotspur fan. And as per usual, I've got three very special guests to talk about tonight's defeat. Back with us is journalist Josh Hughes. Josh, we'll talk about the football, but how are you?
Well, the football, I'm sure, like you lads, dictates your mood, so not good.
Also got Brian Dagul back with us, of course, Spurs YouTuber. Brian, how are you doing?
Apart from Tottenham Hotspur, absolutely wonderful, Chris, and it's brilliant to be back on your channel. Thanks for inviting me and sharing the pod with these two guests as well as myself. But yeah, football, we'll get into it. Outside of football, absolutely brilliant.
And also back with us, your channel regular from Ireland, Gareth McGuinness. Gareth, how are you?
I'm extremely frustrated, Chris. I've actually been sick the last few days, and I was actually starting to come around tonight. And of course, Spurs have made me feel a lot worse. So I was hoping to get back to work tomorrow, but I might need a hangover day off after watching that. I haven't had any alcohol, but I feel like I'm going to have a really bad hangover in the morning. So just really, really frustrating, Chris.
It's certainly frustrating. We're getting to the football. Let's have a look at the Premier League table first of all. Spurs are now down to 10th in the table, 20 points from the opening 14 games. We are now 6 points adrift of the top four. Of course, Tottenham Hotspur lost this evening at the Vitality Stadium to Bournemouth 1-0, a goal in the 17th minute. Ange Postecoglou, if you haven't seen it, went over to the away fans at the very end of the game. He didn't like what some fans had to say. Before we go to the guests and get their thoughts on the game, let's hear from Ange Postecoglou on what happened straight after the match.
You went over at the end, and I think we're trying to maybe have a word with a supporter or two.
No, I wasn't having a word. I mean, they're pretty disappointed, rightly so, and I got some pretty direct feedback as to how we're going, and it's fair enough.
And it's a key spell now, isn't it? I think it's Chelsea, United, and Liverpool, 3 of the next 4 games.
Yeah, they're all big games. You know, we've got to get sort of ourselves out of this space we're in at the moment, where we're just not able to, get a real grip on our season, and you know, we'll have to sort of refocus for Sunday.
Josh, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on the game. Bournemouth 1, Tottenham Hotspur 0. I think the chat is going absolutely crazy at the moment. A lot of Spurs fans have a lot to say, as they did in the away end this evening.
Yeah, I mean, it was just another spineless, tepid, pathetic Tottenham Hotspur display, and not for the first time this season. Basic things, making the right pass, controlling the ball properly, pressing properly, going into 50-50s, you know, stupid mistakes again. Do you know what? Frankly, we're quite lucky it was 1-0. On my book, at least, you know, it could have been about 7-0 tonight. They had a lot of clear-cut chances, and we only had one real, we had 2 genuine chances. One was, you know, Maddison made something out of nothing in the second half, and in the first half, Solanke went in on goal, blazed it over the bar, perhaps under the pressure of the defender. It wasn't good enough from top to bottom. Once again, players that we've been talking about for weeks now on this podcast need to step up, like Maddison, Bissouma. You know, these players, Johnson even, again, was another, if we might as well have been playing with 10 men based on how he played. You know, these players are not stepping up again and again and again. And, you know, it reaches a point where you think, you know, yes, the injury crisis is bad. Yes, we're missing key stars. But let's not forget, we also dropped really, really key points in games where we had those players. When we had Romero and Van de Ven, we produced some tepid performances this season and dropped points we shouldn't be dropping. And tonight was just another kind of example of where we're at under Ange Postecoglou, where this squad is at. The injuries, I think, don't help. So yeah, I mean, we're I think in a pretty grim and pretty toxic place as a club and as a fan base. Look, let's give props to Bournemouth. They are massively improved this season under Anthony Iraola. I think he's doing a very, very good job there, as was the case with Marco Silva and Fulham at the weekend. These teams, that were below us last season have all strengthened, have all been really impressive this season. Gareth and I were chatting on one of our group chats about this, and that point does remain true. However, we only need to be focused on what we're doing. And have we improved since last season? Some stats might suggest so, but the table certainly doesn't. And the level of performance time and time again doesn't indicate that. I'm far more focused and, motivated by what goes on in terms of the end result and the league table. And right now it's not good enough. 14 games played, 20 points says all you need to know. Other managers were sacked for a lot less than this. And it's getting to a point now where, you have to question, even if you're not Ange out, you have to question how long can this keep going on for before Ange has made the decision for the club. And it felt, Ange comes out and says, it's not good enough. And he says that it's on me, as in on himself. He's the one that selects the team. He's the one that, instructs Ryan Mason and Mili Jedinak and the coaches to coach these players. And we've still not fixed the set piece issue. As much as he likes to say it's not an issue, I think luck is the only reason why we've not conceded more from set pieces than we have this season. But every time the opposition gets a corner, a free kick, I'm sat there thinking we could concede from this. And you only have to look at the amount of clear chances that Bournemouth had tonight to show how open we are at the back. It's very clear that when we have a lot of the ball, but we're not creating an awful lot with it. And what happens is the opposition get the ball and they only need to put 3 or 4 passes together and suddenly they're in on goal. I thought Fraser Forster had one little scary moment, but otherwise was pretty good. I thought Bergvall was a slight positive when he came on. He made some progressive passes, but the rest should be really hanging their heads in shame after tonight. It wasn't good enough once again, and I don't know how long we can keep going on like this.
Josh, I know you've said a lot there. You've covered a lot in your opening piece. But what I want to know is, are you still behind Ange Postecoglou? Is it Ange in? Because there are a lot of fans at the moment, certainly in the comments, saying Ange in, but there are a lot saying Ange out.
Chelsea is a massively important game for all of us as Tottenham fans. I think in many ways the fixture has more vitriol, more hate, and more passion than even the North London derby. I think certainly since the Battle of the Bridge, it's been that way, that Tottenham-Chelsea has that extra bit of fire compared with other games. And I think it will be totally inexcusable to lose that one off the back of not beating Roma, not beating Fulham, now losing to Bournemouth. This is a big home game. We tend to turn up by some miracle against the big teams. We really have to win that game. And if we don't, then I think my patience would have probably worn completely thin. I'm probably on the brink right now. But, as we've spoken about before, and I agreed with you in the past, it feels like rinse and repeat at the football club. And it feels like, well, if you get rid of Ange, I don't think he's helping himself. But if you get rid of him, who do you bring in? And do we really expect that things are going to drastically improve? We might get a new manager bounce, but by this time into the next manager's reign, will we be having the same conversations? And, recent history suggests, yes, we will. But I simply don't know at this point. Chelsea is the one we have to move on to now. And, given the personal feelings and the animosity we feel towards them and the significance of the game and the point at our season, we can't be 15 games, 20 points. And we're looking at basically averaging a point a game, just over a point a game, if that's the case, which clearly, obviously, is not tenable at all. So, I think I will probably have a clearer view after that game. Right now, I just feel incredibly angry, incredibly frustrated at where we're at as a football club.
Brian and Gareth, sorry to keep you holding on. I just want to ask Josh before I come to you two, get your thoughts on the game. Josh, very quickly, what have you made of Ange Postecoglou this evening? Because I think this is the fourth instance where he's gone over to a fan and he's basically confronted the fan. The fans are very unhappy in the away end. He's gone over to them. He's already said a number of comments that I'll come on to shortly. But what do you make of Ange Postecoglou keep confronting fans?
I think that's just in his character, to be honest. I think he's only human. But I don't personally like when a manager's doing that. Now, one thing I do have the benefit of seeing, and I know Brian will as well, watching in Canada. I don't know how you, and maybe actually, Gareth, you would have seen the same footage watching it in Ireland. But from what I saw, and I'm no lip reader, it looked very much like in the first instance, a fan said something, and what I made out of Ange Postecoglou's lip movements, at least, it looked very much like he said, I know. And then there was a separate instance, which they didn't show on the TV, which I saw from fan videos, where someone said, the video I saw was Postecoglou, but I don't know whether that was the thing that he heard. And what it looked like was him going, me, pointing at himself. That's what it looked like, he said. Either way, I don't like it. I think as a manager, really what he should be doing is holding his hands up and apologising, to the fans that, like yourself, Chris, that travelled, lots of fans making an 8-hour round trip, some even longer, in the freezing cold, the rain on a Thursday night. It's not cheap to do this. Petrol alone makes it even more expensive. And there are times where I feel like he just doesn't get it. But then again, it's obviously in his character. He can't help but respond to some things that people are saying. But in his post-match presser, at least, he said it's not good enough and that the fans didn't deserve it, which was at least, the bare minimum that he could have done. So I'm pleased that he said that at least. But yeah, it's I don't personally like it.
Brian, let's come to you. Sorry to keep you waiting.
No
I feel like I'm not even going to look at my notes this evening. I feel like this is going to just be talking about Ange Postecoglou and the situation at the football club, because at the full-time whistle, the away end was singing about Daniel Levy and the board. They're unhappy with Ange Postecoglou. They're unhappy with how the team performed today. It does seem a little bit of a mess at the moment. We'll come on to talk about Ange Postecoglou's comments in the post-match press conference, but let's get your thoughts on the game first of all.
Joe, I was speaking to Ben and Simeon just a moment ago, and I said, you know what? The last time I felt this low from a performance was that 6-1 at Newcastle. That performance, obviously, the score was completely different, but I look at it, it's like, have we progressed from that game? Have we learned anything in the time between? And we haven't. We've gone backwards. You look at it, the thing that disgusts me the most with today's performance, and I've said it before, this team, when the tough gets going, the weak go hiding. It's all we do. We have no fighters. We have no one. When you cross that white line, the very least those players should do is fight for that badge. Have a bit of professional pride. Have a bit of desire. They've got a privileged life doing a job that we would all give our right arm for. There is nothing. The body language, they just play it around. And like Josh was saying with Chelsea, we'll show up against Chelsea. It's a big boy. It's a big boy. So we'll show up. Whenever it comes to these teams, that performance that I've just seen was absolutely unacceptable. From minute 1 to minute 90, whatever, there is no creativity. There is no desire. Ange said we're going to play entertaining football. And after the Europa game, but why can't we just entertain? There's only one team that entertained me tonight, and that was Bournemouth. Who and like Josh said, they were absolutely brilliant, Bournemouth. This wasn't a case of did Bournemouth win because they were that good or we were that bad. They were that good, and we are that bad. And the sooner we admit it, the better. These players don't want to fight. They can't pass the ball more than 5 passes without losing it. There's no positional awareness. Look at the goal for Foster's that was offside with just playing the ball out from the back and someone taking it up. There's just nothing. They're not playing. for this manager, I don't think, anymore, whether I'm Ange in or Ange out. And we're here once again where this team put in performances like this and there is no accountability. There is no accountability within this football club. It was a shocking performance, lackluster. I mean, you and many people, Chris, are the ones I feel sorry for. On a December evening, travelling down to the south of England on an 8:15 kickoff on a Thursday, where people have worked damn hard to pay their season ticket prices, take time off work, travel the length and breadth of the country to get that. It was a outrageously disgusting performance, and these players should hang their head in shame.
Brian, dare I ask, how are you feeling about Ange Postecoglou right now?
So, as people know, there's many in this chat, I've never turned my back on a manager. Never, ever, because everyone knows where my anger is directed. He's making it very, very hard for me. He's making it very, very... Listen, I can be Ange in, but question and hold him accountable, which I do. And today, he's got every single thing wrong. Playing... I mean, you look at Jed Spence, who clearly is not wanted by this football club or any manager. He's wanted by the football club, but not wanted by the manager. So much so that we're now playing a player we bought in centre midfield at right back and then having to move him to centre back. I'm now questioning him big time. I am now questioning him big time, but I've said it all along. It doesn't matter who's here. We get rid of Ange, we'll just roll the next manager off the conveyor belt and we'll screw him over. And in 2 years, this fan base will want him out or we won't back him. It doesn't matter. I want... The reason I wanted Ange to stay and succeed is we've tried hiring and firing managers over and over again, whether it be the win now managers, as in Conte and Jose, whether it be the project building like Pochettino, whether it be that we couldn't get anyone else and we cocked it up, so let's hire Nuno. Is it a Martin Yole? Is it a Tim? No matter what, they're doomed for failure the second they sign that contract. So I don't know. I wanted to see a manager get given time and say, do you know what? At least the club gave this man time. It didn't work, but fair play, the club gave a manager time. But I think he's a dead man walking right now, unfortunately. Whether I want him to stay or not, I think he's a dead man walking.
Do you know what? Before I come to you, Gareth, I'm going to give my opinion because I like Ange Postecoglou and I really want it to work for him. And at the moment, I'm very much Ange in. And I go back to the summer transfer window, I believe, and I said this many, many times and got called negative. And many people see me as a positive Spurs fan. And I believe that I'm a positive Spurs fan, but realistic at the same time. But that summer transfer window, we needed to bring in more players, more experienced players for now. I get that the club are building for the future, which I'm a big fan of, but you have to address the here and now. We saw so many injuries, suspensions, other issues on and off the pitch last season, and we have got those exact issues back again this season. The amount of injuries that we have. I know a lot of Premier League teams have a lot of injuries, but somehow they deal with it and get over it. And I'm with you, Brian, in the fact that whether you sacked Ange in the morning, someone's going to come in and it's going to be that whole cycle yet again. We need to be different as a football club, need to act differently as a football club. Certainly in the transfer windows, it did pain me a little bit, and we'll talk about this shortly, when Ange said that we're not going to do anything too significant in the January transfer window. This squad needs strengthening. This squad needs more players coming through the door, and Ange needs help. He needs the tools to take this football club forward if we want to be successful and act as a big club. It's frustrating. It really is frustrating. Me as a Spurs fan, I'm willing to be patient with this manager. I know a lot of people are frustrated about the way that the board have made certain decisions in recent years under various different managers, but I'm willing to be patient with this manager. But he needs the tools, he needs the time, he needs the patience. I also agree with you, Brian, that performance was nowhere near good enough today. even the likes of James Maddison. You know, you need to see these leaders on the pitch giving absolutely everything. You need them to leave every single thing out on the pitch. Did they do that this evening? I don't think they did. I feel like there's a whole lot of things that we can talk about. It is getting very late. It is nearly midnight. And I feel like this podcast could go on for hours. So we'll try and break it down as quickly as we can. Gareth, we're 20 minutes in. We've not even got your thoughts on the game yet. This is how passionate I think all of us are feeling about today's performance and the situation right now. Gareth, let's get your thoughts on the match.
Chris, it's been actually really good listening to the lads there. I think they've made some really, really good points. But I am with you in terms of I'm still behind Ange. As he making it harder and harder, possibly because the performances like tonight were just not acceptable, not good enough. Tactical was poor, technical was poor. Decision making over the last number of games has been desperate, really, really bad. As that a lack of confidence, as that fatigue, because so many players having to play Thursday, Sunday. I think that goes back to the point that you made, Chris, about the transfer window. You know, Archie Gray and Bergville probably haven't had enough game time, probably because Ange doesn't believe they're ready to be exposed to that amount of game time. So there's two players that they signed in the summer that maybe the club don't feel are ready to command the Premier League games, your bigger Europa League games like your Romas, like your Rangers next week. So there's definitely been a, you know, you look back to the transfer window, these players, like you say, could be big players in years to come, but are they ready tonight? I mean, Bergville, I think Josh said, come on and made a bit of a difference. He did, but, you know, he hasn't had many opportunities, and the ones that he has had, he's looked really, really raw. Tonight, Chris, you know, I know Brian says minute 1, minute 96. Look, I think we started the game okay. Was it brilliant? No, but I felt like we were in control up until that corner went on. There was a spell at the start of the second half. I think the game all really changed when Ben Davis went off, to be honest. I think Archie Gray on the centre-back was an absolute disaster. I know there's no real options there. And look, managers don't plan for them situations. You know, who else could they put on at centre-back? Other than Archie Gray, there was no one else available. You know, 3 centre-backs now injured. And that's a real worry moving on to Sunday because Chelsea are banging goals on left, right and centre. You know, Archie Gray really struggled against Evan Nielsen. Dragusin looks like he was getting pulled left, right and centre. Udogie looks completely shattered. Porro, for me, not a great defender. Good on the ball, but not a great defender. So, look, those Chelsea players will be licking their lips at the thought of, you know, playing a back 4. And I know Forster's done okay, but I think some of those saves that he's made have hit him more than anything else. I think it's been reactionary more than him being a great goalkeeper. You know, that pass that he played on for Kulusevski was crazy. You know, the player was running. I could see it from my TV screen what was going to happen, and he still played the pass. Just so disjointed, Chris, and that's the most worrying thing, that Ange is built on structure, built on, you know, playing out from the back, playing through the thirds, being creative. And we didn't really create a lot tonight, and we didn't create a lot at the weekend against Fulham. So, you know, that there's mitigating circumstances, but I still think we have players on the team that are good enough to be producing more. And we just look like we're shot to pieces at the moment, and we have been here before. It did kind of feel like a game tonight, and you've seen the reaction of the fans at the end. You've seen the players' body language. I think what Brian pointed out, it did look like this is a real bad moment, and you're kind of thinking that, you know, with the games coming up, you know, Man City was a game. I think he was going under a bit of pressure, and we got the one. The Villa game was another one. The West Ham game before that. Whenever we've needed a big result this season, we've tended to pull it out. But will Sunday be a game too far? You know, we haven't got the players that we had in those other games. So it's, look, I think I said it before, Christy. I'm not someone that's completely concentrated on results, looking at league tables in December. But the boys do make a good point, that this probably cannot continue for too much longer. If we lose to Chelsea, lose the Rangers, go out of the cup, you know, will it even get that far? Because Levy's done it before, but he's pulled the plug. But I would like Ange to get the rest of the season, to be honest. But he still has to buy himself time. he has to. We can't keep losing and losing and losing. Otherwise, his position becomes untenable. And Sunday's a massive one. It's a game where if we can win, it'll galvanise the fan base again. But we've been here before, and it's no good me saying to Josh one week in the group chat, look at that performance against Man City, look at that performance, and then if we go and follow it up with 2 or 3 bad performances, because it starts to feel like, as this team moving in that direction, or is it a team where if everything goes our way, we can be at our brilliant best? We don't look like we can deal with setbacks, and that's a sign of good teams. I know Mo Salah's been carrying Liverpool, but even when things are tough, they're able to grit out results. I'm not seeing that team at the moment that's got any real belief in, if we have a setback, that we can really recover from it, especially away from home. I think there was a stat tonight, Chris, that I think when Bournemouth scored, they said on the commentary team says that Spurs will have to do something that they haven't done since October 2023, and that's won a game away from home when the opposition has scored a goal. So that is pretty damning. But for me, I would like to see more time given, because like Brian has said, it's no good keep sacking managers and repeating. History tells you that we could sack a manager, bring in a new one, and what's really going to change? I think Ange needs to go through this really, really tough period. Yes, he has to buy himself a couple of results, but I wouldn't be completely throwing the title in yet, because we have seen some really good moments during Ange's time, and we have seen players improve. But I do think at the moment the games have really caught up, and the confidence is really, really low in the squad. So can they turn it around for Sunday? It's a massive ask, but I just hope the fans are with the team on Sunday, and give them a fair crack at it, because if we go a goal behind, it could be, I'm going to the game on Sunday, it could be really, really toxic. So I would err caution to the fans that are going, the fans that watch the podcast, please stick with the team on Sunday.
The atmosphere, it was so quiet at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the weekend against Fulham. I actually said on the post-match podcast that I think that was the worst atmosphere I'd ever witnessed at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium since moving in there in April 2019. Ange Postecoglou in his press conference said, "All I can say is I'm really disappointed with tonight, and I'm determined to get it right, and I'll keep fighting until we do." Now, Simon, who is a regular viewer of the podcast, he says, "I'm sorry, I'm an Ange fan. But that was absolutely shocking, awful." Simon, I'm with you. I know you're normally a very positive fan and posting a lot of positive comments on this podcast. So thank you so much for all of your input. Gareth, let's stay with you. The fan base, again, seems to be very mixed. Half want Ange in, half want him out. The Ange in people, me and you, we want to see time given to a manager. We want him to get the tools. We want him to have the patience from the fans. Do you think he's going to get it?
Chris, I said this from the very, very start. Ange was off to a negative start because of his CV. He didn't have the resume of a Conte or Mourinho, where they got more time because they were winners. Even when the football was crap, people kind of just disregarded that because they looked at the history and says these managers won you trophies. People look at Ange, Australian League, Japanese League, Scottish League, and they look down on it, and that's the brutal truth of it. So he was always off to a bad start. Then all of a sudden, the team started like a house on fire, and Ange got the fans on board. But kind of when you're going through social media, I struggle to see why the atmosphere was so bad on Sunday, because we just beat Man City the week before. All right, the Roma game was a wee bit mad, the 2-2, but it wasn't a complete disaster. You think Fulham at home, let's get up for it, but for whatever reason, as you say, the atmosphere was so bad. And even tonight, the fans were really, really, toxic at the end. And there was obviously, I get the fact that traveling, the fees, but fans, that's been the case for so many years under different managers. Fans that go to games, they know the price on the ticket, they know how much it's going to cost. Yes, they should get better performances, but it just seems like a lot of fans are itching to get at Ange, or itching to get this man out the door. There does seems to be like an agenda against them a wee bit. Maybe that is down to the fact that people believe that he isn't big enough. He hasn't the fancy name. He hasn't got the experience in the Premier League or major European leagues. I'm not so sure, because I do think if you go through his tenure here, there's been a lot more positives in his tenure than there's been in Conte's and Mourinho's, for example. because I think even the games that we were winning under their managers was largely down to Kane and Son at their brilliant best. And a lot of the times we didn't play any entertaining football. I know Brian made a point tonight that the performance was poor, but I think even at some of the results this season, the games that they have won, they've played unbelievable in. So it is a really strange one. It does seem to be a lack of patience for this manager, and there does seem to be a lot of fans that are itching to get him out the door. But I am scratching my head wondering why that is.
These are loyal fans. You needed a lot of loyalty points to come to Bournemouth away, Gareth. Loyal fans that go all around the world following Tottenham Hotspur, and a lot of these fans this evening were calling Ange Postecoglou out. Postecoglou went over to the away end. He wanted to talk to a number of fans that were calling him out and saying certain comments that he didn't want to go into in the press conference. Do you think it is right that Ange is calling these fans out? Because I tell you what, although I'm right behind Ange, I'm not a fan of this confrontation with the fans.
Well, I think he's going over to applaud them. From the videos that I seen, and I know Josh elaborated on a few, I did hear a video where there was a really, really personal remark about Ange's physical shape. And I think, he's obviously angry and frustrated with the result. And I don't think he appreciates that kind of criticism. If you want to boo and jeer and, be disgruntled with the performance, I think he said that in his press conference tonight, that he understands that. But I think when you make a personal remark towards somebody, we seen this with Eric Dyer when he went through the stadium. These people are human. Yes, maybe he should react better, but I don't think he deserves to be, criticized in that way about his physical appearance or anything like that. Any criticism should be directed at the tactical side, the technical side. If you're not happy, you can tell the manager, but I think you have to do it in a certain way. And of course, everyone's emotions is very high after the game. We've just been very poor, very frustrated. I think the way the game ended was horrendous. Apart for the first 65, 70 minutes, we weren't good. But the last 20, 25 minutes when Bournemouth had all those opportunities, I mean, it almost felt like we needed the final whistle just to get out 1-0, because I never really thought we were going to score at that stage. It only looked like Bournemouth were going to add to the scoreline. So I think Ange was incredibly frustrated. He says after the game that he's disgusted with how things are, and he's never been more determined to fix it. And I think sometimes we have short memories. It was only March 2023 when Conte threw the whole club under the bus. Mourinho still has digs about Spurs, and when he was at Roma. Ange is a very respectful manager. He's not the type to call out, or I don't think he would ever disrespect the club. I know certain fans will say, he's a yes man and all that. I never got that opinion of him. I think he is the type of manager behind closed doors that will say it how it is. And I'm sure he'll probably have plenty of conversations with the chairman. And just to go on about your point about the January window, Chris, I know he says there's going to be no significant business done. But I think that's the right thing to say. If he comes out and says we need players, we need this, we need that, all of a sudden teams know we know they're going to add points, they're going to add price on their player up. So I think that's the best thing to say in the media, that, do you know what, we're happy with our squad, and if the opportunity comes up, then you go. I do think we'll sign in January. We have to, Chris. If we don't sign players in January, you may as well sign Ange's P45, because we haven't got a big squad able to compete in 4 competitions. It's proven with the injuries. As Ange responsible for some of them injuries, there does seem to be a lot of muscle injuries. Maybe that's the sprints, maybe that's the high press, maybe that's the constant chasing after the ball and behind. But we do seem to be really, really short on there, and we definitely need to sign players in January. But Chris, unfortunately, like you, I am one of those fans that wants Ange to get at least to the end of the season. I think after 2 seasons, you can give it a fair judgment call. Does this man deserve a 3rd season, or do we thank him for how far he's took us? He has at least brought some sort of identity back to the club. And do you say, do you know what, we need to go and get someone now that can take us on? But I think the problem we've got is this December period, Chris, if we come out of these next 3 or 4 games and they're all bad results, it's difficult to see how it could stay, because I think the fans would be completely turned, and there would be fear and fear of me and you, Chris, looking for him to get more time.
I agree. I feel like the more he calls fans out, I feel like he's going to get more fans against him, actually, as well. Josh, let's come to you. Let's talk about the match facts and stats here. Bournemouth had 34.5% of the ball to Tottenham 65.5%. Shots, Bournemouth had 21 to Tottenham's 12. Shots on target, Bournemouth had 8 to Tottenham's 4. Shots on target, Bournemouth had 8 to Tottenham's 5. Block shots, Bournemouth had 5 to Tottenham's 3. Total touches in the opposition box, Bournemouth 28, Spurs 25. Goalkeeper saves, Bournemouth 4, Tottenham 7. Fouls, Bournemouth 15, Tottenham 8. And corners, Bournemouth had 5 to Tottenham's 9. The starting 11 today, Ange Postecoglou made 3 changes to the 1-1 draw against Fulham at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium at the weekend. Gray, Solanke and Kulusevski all coming in. Porro, Timo Werner and Heung-min Son coming out. So the starting 11 was as follows: Forster, Gray, Dragushin, Davis, Udogi, Saar, Basuma, Maddison, Kulusevski, Solanke, Johnson. The sub bench this evening: Austin, Porro, Spence, Reguilon, Bergvall, Elise, Timo Werner, Heung-min Son and Will Lancashire. Let's get your thoughts on the starting 11, Josh. Any surprises there for you? Of course, Heung-min Son on the bench. Ange Postecoglou has spoken at length about trying to manage his game time. Was that the right decision in your opinion?
I understand why Son was benched tonight, and I also understand why Pedro Porro was benched tonight as well. I mean, the Fulham game, it was clear both of them looked completely out on their feet. Porro in particular looked, like he just ran an ultra marathon. He looked like he was struggling to move for large parts of that game. And I get that at this point in time, when we're playing games every 3-4 days, and the squad is as thin as it is, we're going to have to make some changes. The only one that did surprise me, and I know Ange said that, he didn't feel that Jed Spence was necessarily ready to start yet. I feel like all of us as fans were probably hoping to see Jed Spence start today, or at least be involved in some capacity. Once again, he wasn't. And that, seems truly baffling to me, because this is a guy that every time he has played, he's actually looked pretty good. And, I know we spoke briefly about Spence earlier, in that kind of it's clear that the managers don't seem to want Jed Spence at the club. But, at least the fans that I speak to do. So that was the only one really. I felt, once again, I feel for Archie Gray, because I feel like he's not a defender. He's not a fullback, certainly not a centre half. And maybe it would have been a good opportunity to give him, if you were going to start Gray, give him that opportunity to impress in midfield. Because if you played him, as a pivot, and you said to him, look, we're going to actually play you in the position that, is perhaps your favoured position, you probably get a response from him, which is that of, I really want to prove a point here. You wonder how a player like that must feel constantly being asked to do a job. I'm sure he's happy to play minutes, but certainly us Spurs fans aren't happy seeing the same thing over and over when it's clearly not working. So again, I was sort of scratching my head at Jed Spence, but the squad is really thin at the minute. So I think we're kind of just having to make the most out of what is a pretty bad situation. Chris, I think you're on mute.
It's been a bit sort of evening. Brian, let's come to you. Let's get your thoughts on the starting 11. Were you surprised by Ange's selection today? Because, of course, as we all know, games are coming thick and fast. And you're on mute as well.
Well, I'm following your lead, mate. You're the guru. I'm just following your lead. It seems
everything's going pear-shaped this evening.
Simple. Simon says we'll do. Chris Cowlin says we will follow you. Was I surprised with the likeness? What I will say is we keep saying this about Jed Spence because he's a right back. Let's give him minutes. Let's get him in there. Was I surprised to not see him there? Not really, because no manager has really trusted him. No manager has trusted him. He's there because obviously we've got options. When Porro was out, we keep talking about how bad Porro's looked. I don't think Destiny's looked good. Spence also could have played at left back if need be. Johnson on the left, who we know has done terrible on the left, and I back Johnson. I think if it wasn't for his goals, God knows where we'd be. He's been terrible on the left whenever we've played him there. But we place him there when you've got whether you like it or not, you got Timo Werner there, who is a left winger, who has looked brighter in games. Why aren't you playing him? The thing that surprised or doesn't surprise me, like I said, Chris, I look at this team and I had my season ticket in the 90s. I remember players that weren't that brilliant on the ball, but players like your Colin Calderwoods, your Steve Stedgley's, your Justin Edinburgh's, your Paul Stewart, your Teddy Sheringham, guys that I could go on for ages. But there'll be players that will be rallying the troops, and during that game we'll be saying this ain't acceptable and geeing them up and saying, what the hell are you doing? There's just nothing. I'm not even surprised at the nothing, sir. So you're looking at, I'm not surprised with the lineup? No, because you never know what lineup we're going to have. You just, honestly, it's like when Forrest Gump says life is a box of chocolates. You never know what you're going to get next. You could say that with our lineup. There's just now or reasoning behind it. I just don't get it.
Gareth, let's come to you. Were you surprised by the lineup today? Because, of course, you're a football coach. You know how you've got to rotate players. You know about the game time. Of course, we've got an important game coming up against Chelsea on Sunday. Is it about team selection, or is it about, like what Brian said earlier, about the players just not giving enough?
I'll answer both of them questions, Chris. Funny enough, I was watching the football last night, and Chelsea made 7 or 8 changes. And just the depth of the squad that they have, we could only really make 2 or 3 because the rest were all kids, and that was the reality of it. It was going to be a similar kind of team that played last week. He opted to rest Son and he opted to rest Porro, but realistically, he couldn't have done much more. Could he have brought Spence in? Look, I know the lads have had plenty to say about Spence, and I do like him. I don't think he's the type of an Ange Postecoglou fullback, but regardless of that, this wasn't down to a right back tonight playing or not. We would have lost that game with Spence playing anyway. That wasn't the reason we lost the game. There was bigger issues on the pitch than Jed Spence not playing. But look, I think Ange made some comments about Son this week. He is finished. He is finished at the top level. From where he was, he's not that type of player anymore. He might have the all good game, but for me now, he's having 5 bad games for every 1 good game. And up until a couple of years ago, he was having 4 good games for every 1 bad game, on a ratio over a season.
Gareth, I don't want to come across as really, really negative here, but what really surprised me this evening is how many wayward passes there were. Someone even sarcastically put a comment in the comments earlier saying that I thought we'd signed the Holdings because we passed to them so many times. There were so many wayward passes. Why? It looked at some point that some of these players hadn't even been in training this week together.
I thought Basuma was absolutely, woeful. He could not pass. He couldn't put 2 passes together. He was dreadful. I was shocked that it wasn't him that come off and Sarr stayed on. Sarr wasn't great, but I thought Basuma was the weakest link in the midfield. Chris, I would go back to what Brian says about Johnson on the left. It just looked a really disjointed. I couldn't understand Johnson on the left. I can't remember 1 good game he's ever had for Spurs on the left. That was a really strange decision. Kulusevski on the right, I know it kind of worked against Man City, but I think, he was lost out there on that right-hand side. And just because it worked in 1 game doesn't necessarily mean it's going to work in this game. And that was a different kind of game playing against Man City, where there was going to be a bit more of us not having the ball and getting on the counter-attack a wee bit more and pressing. Whereas tonight, Bournemouth were very happy to let us have the ball. And Kulusevski was drifting way into the middle. Johnson was coming inside, and we just had absolutely no width at all. Gray, you could tell he was uncomfortable playing that sort of inverted right back role. Udogie, for me at the moment's just been really, really off it. Tired. Well, that's fatigue or confidence. He's not had a great season. So I think at the moment, there needs to be tweaks in this system we're playing. There's a real lack of creativity. At times, I know there's been some games it's been great when it's worked, but I think Josh pointed out, we're 14 games on now, and for the 4 or 5 unbelievable performances, there was a couple to start of season maybe we should have got points in, but the games that we've lost recently or drawn recently, I can't really say we deserved any more. So there is a theme at the moment. The performance levels on a decline. So I think when your performance level is on a decline, you need to look at doing something differently, not completely going away from your identity, because managers won't do that. But let's look for little tweaks. How can we affect the game? And at the moment, that's just not happening. And I was so surprised at Johnson on the left. It would have made more sense for Kulusevski to play in midfield, push Johnson out to the right, and bring Werner in. And I know I'm not Werner's biggest fan, but I think there was about a 5-minute spell before Ben Davies got that injury where there did look to be a wee bit more balance. And I think that was the spell in the game where we had the most opportunities. You think about the Maddison opportunity, the Pedro Porro shot that the keeper saved. There was another one as well where Udogie went down the left and crossed it in. That was the spell where I think Gary wrote in the group chat, the goal might be coming here. And then Ben Davies went down injured and the whole game plan really fell apart. I know Bournemouth had a lot of opportunities, but if you look at a lot of them opportunities, they all came in the last 20 or 25 minutes when we were completely disjointed and wide open. Not just, we looked really, really poor in possession. It looked like a team of strangers. And on the counter attack, one pass. I know Josh talked about 3 or 4, but it was almost like one pass and they run every time. And only for some really, really poor finishing, it would have been an absolutely embarrassing result. Or scoreline wise, it was embarrassing enough. They had all them opportunities, but in terms of the scoreline, it would have been really, really bad. So, Chris, it definitely is time to, do we do something a wee bit different on Sunday? Do we drop off a wee bit, let Chelsea have a bit more possession? Because I think if we really open the game up, we drag us in and put Archie Gray at centre back. Because I can't think who else is going to play at centre back unless Romero's back and fit. It sounds like he hasn't even trained. He might train tomorrow. Maybe needs must. He goes on the back of a training session. Because what they'll do, I would imagine they'll train probably, it could be late tomorrow evening, or they might not even train at all. They might do a wee morning session on Saturday, do a bit of analysis on Saturday, and the games on Sunday. There's only really a 48-hour turnaround now between now and Sunday, so there's not much you can do. But maybe does Ange suffer a wee bit with a makeshift back 4 goalkeeper that's not really good on the ball? Does he respect Chelsea and maybe play a wee bit on the counter attack and maybe try and win the ball up high press like we did against Man City? Because I think if we open the game up, we're asking for trouble. We out Van de Ven, we out a fit Romero, we out Bentancur. And Bentancur, for me, I know Simone, we spoke about it before, not like a natural number 6, but he's a level above Basuma. He is a far better player. And at the moment, we've got no real balance in the midfield, whoever plays on there at the moment. And I think Kulusevski's been carrying the team for large times this season. With those driven runs, he looks absolutely shattered. He looked really, really tired towards the end tonight. Probably the worst performance I've seen from him this season in that second half. So all the signs point to Sunday being difficult, Chris. But look, I had no confidence going to the Man City game, and I had no confidence going into the Villa game, and I didn't have much confidence at Old Trafford. So maybe that's a good sign. And I'm going to the Spurs stadium on Sunday, Chris, and I think we've won the last 7 games I've been at. So there is good omens there for us.
Jinxed it now, mate.
What's that?
Just jinxed it now.
Well, no. But you know what? I was actually thinking about this, and I'll finish on this, Chris. Isn't it funny? When we played Chelsea last year, this was the game when Spurs was on the up, and Pochettino, probably if we had won that game, it would have been the end of Pochettino with Chelsea. It's all geared the opposite way now. Chelsea are absolutely flying. Ange probably needs this to keep him in a job. If Chelsea turn us over 3 or 4, it probably will be the end. But maybe this is the game that he needs to galvanise the fan base, get everyone on side and beat Chelsea. And look, beating Chelsea buys him an hour 2 or 3 games. It's because he's beat the Villas, the Man Uniteds, the Man Cities that he's getting more patience. If he had beat Bournemouth tonight and lost to Chelsea, I think he'd have been under big massive pressure. I think if he beats Chelsea, it gives him an hour 2 or 3 games, get some players back. Because I think by the cup game by Liverpool, we're going to have a few of them players back. So you'll see a much more better quality of players back. So it's just about getting through the next week or so. And it's a huge game on Sunday, Chris. Make no bones about it.
They're all huge games, and none of them are easy. I'll tell you what, it's now gone past midnight here in the UK. I'm still in the car park right next to the Bournemouth Stadium. I've got a 3.5-hour journey home, so I'm going to wrap this up pretty quickly. I have got 8 pages of notes here on the game. I'm not going to go through them. It's the first time I've ever done this. I said, sod it, I'm not doing it. I think that Spurs did start the game very well. Had we have scored early on, it could have been very, very different. Josh, as I said, I'm not going to go through all of the match incidents, so we're going to go straight into Bournemouth's only goal of the game after 17 minutes. It was Bournemouth's first corner. Now, I said to a couple of friends that I was sitting next to this evening, I said, at this point, Fraser Forster put his hands up. And I said, what a huge presence Fraser Forster is in the Tottenham Hotspur goal. And, a tall build. No one's really going to want to run at him if he's running out. That's exactly what he didn't do. Josh, talk us through this goal, because the corner comes in. It just seemed so easy. It just seemed such an easy goal for Bournemouth to score, and so poor defensively for Tottenham.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get into the business of blaming Fraser Forster for the goal in any way. I think it was very clear. It was Dragusin and Davis and Udogie. I think it was Dragusin and Udogie, in fact, who had two Bournemouth players, and the goal scorer, I can't even remember his name now off the top of my head, who I actually thought had a
you
very
don't
good
believe
game.
that Fraser Forster. You don't believe Fraser Forster should be coming for this ball?
I'm sure he should be coming for this ball, but that's not the issue here. As much as yes, that could also have happened. Radu Dragusin completely stood still and watched his man go. And between the pair of them, it was Udogie and Udogie just standing there on the back post, and it was Davis and Dragusin. It was the same old Spurs story. It was players watching the ball and not watching their man. Dragusin had the man, completely stood still, didn't follow him. And you can literally see, if you watch the goal back, he had this position. He just ran to the left and around, free header. And, as much as I think, Forster could come out, the bigger issue for me was the fact that it's basics of football. You do not lose your man. You do not ball watch. You keep onto your man, and when the ball arrives, that's when you anticipate and you deal with it. And they didn't do it once again. I don't believe for 1 second the narrative. And in fact, I find it astounding that Ange Postecoglou has the audacity to come out and say that set pieces are not a problem. They clearly are a problem, because even when we're not conceding from them, the amount of free headers that teams get against us, I mean, you're asking for trouble. You're literally asking for trouble. And for that to be the first corner of the game, and that be the precedent that you set. And in fact, you know what? We didn't deal with them horrendously after that, but that was the precedent that you set. And it's too often where this is happening, game after game after game. And, whether we concede from them or not, we should still be dealing with it a lot better. And it was classic Spurs switching off, ball watching, and, you're gifting them that. And, it looked like a bit of inventive work from the Bournemouth set piece coach and the Bournemouth team. I'm sure they worked on it in training. And I think, in fact, the goal scorer alluded to that in his post-match interview. But if you're a set piece coach, you must be rubbing your hands with glee at the prospect of playing Tottenham Hotspur, because you're going to have chances. And that if you come up with something, chances are if you're going to create from it, if not score from it. So it was once again, it was just the same old story from Spurs, really, and something we really need to rectify.
Brian, as I said, I'm not going to read through all of the match incidents. There are far too many, but I did write down a number of times. Bournemouth chance, hit over the bar. Bournemouth chance, just wide. Bournemouth chance, wide again. The amount of chances that Bournemouth had this evening, I think Josh alluded to it earlier. They could have scored an absolute hatful, which is worrying. I'm going to go around each of you to give you another chance of talking about some of the match incidents without me going through minute by minute. And then we'll finish up by talking about the Chelsea game on Sunday. Brian, give us your thoughts on the amount of chances that Bournemouth had in this game, and, of course, the chances that Spurs missed. And you've done it again.
Right, it's staying off mute. It's staying off mute now. Someone said to me during the game, you wonder if Spurs do practice set pieces. And I said today, I don't know if this week we've practiced playing football. I don't know what they're doing at the training ground. There's no cohesion. There's no game plan. Bournemouth just non-stop, relentless. We're meant to be doing this high press and this fast, expansive football. Bournemouth had our number. So many people have the blueprint, and the one thing Bournemouth will do, they'll keep changing and trying. We just stay rigid, and you just saw. We could see the chances coming before they happened. You look at some of those, the 2 goals that were disallowed for offside, Spurs errors. Just you, like you said, you've got pages and pages and pages of Bournemouth chance. I would say a lion's share of them was from our inability to play as a team. I really would. It's a bit that Chris, the only positive thing I can say from this game is thank God for Fraser Forster. And who would have thought 3 weeks ago when we heard about Vicario, we'd all be saying, and I was one of them, oh my God, we're doomed with this. And then when we listen, the way I've looked at the last few weeks and these good performances, if it hadn't been for Dagul, Sin Davies and Fraser Forster, the rear guard that weren't good enough to get into the first team, we would have been screwed. Absolutely screwed if it weren't for those 3 in the most recent games. And thank God for Fraser, because it could have been a cricket score. And you know what? If it had been a cricket score, Bournemouth would have totally, utterly deserved it.
Brian, what do you make of our chances today? Because it is fair to say we did have a couple.
Yeah, I mean, Maddison, his chance was, Solanke, and I love Solanke. We just need to find some way to get the service to him. That first opportunity at the start of the first half, he's got to be putting away. I know he's come back from an injury or an illness, and he may not. We can make the excuses, but he's got to put that away. He has got to put that away. Some of the others, do you know what? I can't really, apart from Madison, really recall it. But do you know what? Even when Son and Porro came on, 2 of our big hitters didn't make a difference. You thought, right, now they're here. Now the chances will come. Do you know what? Like I said, I can't even find a thing to praise Spurs about Fraser Forster. The chances we created should have put away. We didn't. And we move on to the next one. I'm ashamed of that performance and the way we played today. And people will say, oh, Brian, you're being negative again like I am towards the ownership. There is nothing positive to take away from this game apart from Fraser Forster's performance.
Gareth, let's finish with you talking about this evening's game. Is there anything you want to say about all the Bournemouth chances that they had, and of course the couple of chances that Spurs had? Solanke missed one early on in the game. There was a disallowed goal. Heung-min Son was offside. Maddison went close. We did have a few chances in this game. And you're on mute as well.
We're all at it tonight. The whole Spurs squad was on mute tonight. Someone.
Our performance collectively has been about as good as Tottenham tonight.
Well, that's it. Look, when Ben Davies come off, it just seemed to be like a gung-ho nature where we just poured every player forward. And there was still like 20, 25 minutes to go in the game. You know, I can understand it. The last sort of 6 minutes injury time, you're desperate for a goal. But there's no way we should be conceding that many opportunities in such a short spell. And it's all virtually the same chance replayed over with, on the left side or the right side where, when they broke, it was 3-on-2 or 4-on-2. And as you say, it was just their poor finishing because they actually worked the openings quite well. But it was the final finish that let them down. But it was just, when you're watching it, you're like, what's going to happen. You're like, if we give the ball away here, we're going to get absolutely ravaged here on the counter-attack. There is a time for that in the last, 5 minutes of a game. But we just seemed to lose any sort of control that we had. In the first half, we didn't play quick enough. But we had a general control in the game. I think at half-time, the stats, Bournemouth only had 3 shots in the first half. So when you think about 2 of those were the goal and the corner that came from the goal, there was, at least we were stopping those counter-attacks. We just seemed to lose complete control. I think Ange really went all out to try and get a goal, but at one stage we had Son playing in midfield and Werner on the left, Johnson on the right, Solanke was on, Kulusevski was on. We just had no protection of the defence. Porro and Udogie were pushed on, and we almost had too many players on that area, and it was congested. Bournemouth had players behind the ball. As soon as they won the ball back, bang, one pass and they run. And that is something that's got to change. I mean, God help if we go 1-0 down to Chelsea at the weekend, because if we start doing that and leave ourselves with Palmer, Midwiki, and Jackson against Gray and Dragerson, I tell you what, they won't be as gifting as Bournemouth for it. And that Chelsea away end, they'll be bouncing, and they'll be celebrating goal after goal. So we have got to find a way of making sure tonight is a massive learning curve for, if we are chasing a game, not to just completely disregard that. There is 20-25 minutes to go here. Let's work our way back into it. Let's be patient. And for all those attacking players that were on, I can't think of a chance in the last 25 minutes. Madison was the last chance we had in the game. I can't think of one opportunity that happened. So there was far too many players on, and they were just getting in each other's way, all playing out of position. I've never seen Son play as an inside left of a 3 in midfield. I mean, I just thought that was crazy. So, look, I know we're short, and I know sometimes you have to try things, but there does have to be, there has to be a tactical reason behind it. And I just thought a lot of that tonight was really desperate and really reckless. And if we're reckless on Sunday, Chris, it will be the end for Ange. And as much as I've defended him, if it goes down that route of chasing the game, he did that last year with the 9 men against Chelsea, didn't he? And he was lucky. Let's be honest. Chelsea, I know they got a couple of goals towards the end, but on an hour night they could have had us for a big number. And this is a much more ruthless and devastating Chelsea than we played last year. So we have to respect teams. Almost like in the last 20 minutes, I think we didn't give any respect to Bournemouth. Just thought, what, we'll play our way and we'll get a goal doing it our way. And that's just not how it works. You have to be patient and you have to be calculated. That's the word I was searching for earlier. There was no calculation in our last 20-25 minutes tonight. It was just pure chaos. And that is something that's got to be rectified going on this Sunday, because if you're missing key players, you have to be a little bit more pragmatic. And that doesn't mean defensive, but just a wee bit more pragmatic in your approach. So I'm hopeful that'll be the way on Sunday. I do think tonight will be a big learning curve for Ange. And I think on Sunday, he knows now he's in a dogfight. He knows he's in a dogfight for his job. And the fans that were giving him time are now starting to turn. So Sunday's a massive game for him. And I think if he goes out and he does something a wee bit different, and he manages to get a draw, or he manages to make it a very competitive game, and we somehow win, you'll get fans praising that. You'll say, do you know what? He wasn't totally, gambling on his way, and he's adapted. And look, he did that against Man City. He first 10-15 minutes, we didn't play as high. We went after the ball then and won the high press and turned it over. And look, I'm a big believer in first goal being crucial. And if we get the first goal on Sunday, Chris, I think it'll make a massive difference to how the game goes. Too many times this year at home we've been chasing our tails, and I don't think we've got the players to go 1-0 behind on Sunday with the lack of options, the lack of key players missing. So it's really, really important that we remain calculated in our approach.
And Postecoglou in his press conference spoke about Ben Davies's injury. He said it looks like he's done his hamstring. Him and Radu have played every game. It's the one position we can't rotate. It will obviously be out for a period of time now. We'll just have to wait to see how long it is. It's a consequence of having the squad we have at the moment. Now, Josh, last question for you all. Chelsea up next. Chelsea are currently second in the Premier League table, 28 points from 14 games. They're 7 points away from league leaders Liverpool. So far in December, they have beat Southampton 5-1 and beat Aston Villa 3-0. Unbeaten in the Premier League in November, also beating Leicester 2-1, drawing against Arsenal and Manchester United. Also 2 wins in the Europa Conference League. The last time that they lost a competitive game was in the Carabao Cup against Newcastle on the 30th of October, losing 2-0. And the last time they lost a Premier League game was back on the 20th of October, and that was a 2-1 away defeat at Anfield against Liverpool. As I've said, busy. We have got fixtures coming thick and fast. But of course, we face Chelsea next on Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. And then, of course, next week, Rangers away, Southampton away in the Europa League and Premier League, respectively. Josh, how do you see the Chelsea game going on Sunday? What changes do you think Ange Postecoglou will make? Of course, he's being forced into changes again because of Ben Davies's injury. How do you see it going?
Yeah, you can't even begin to predict it, really, because Spurs, if I'm going to predict it based on what I'm seeing, I think it's going to be a really, really grim Sunday afternoon. But then you never know what's going to happen with Spurs, especially against, bigger teams. It's the only teams that they seem to give any sort of respect to and so far show up against. This Chelsea team is a completely different beast to the one that turned up last season. I think Enzo Maresca is built on the work that Poch did towards the back end of last season, and some. Everyone seems to be fit and firing. Even the players that haven't been performing for Chelsea historically are now starting to show up. Enzo Fernandez is playing really well. Caicedo's been almost a bit of a revelation in midfield this season. Cole Palmer is doing what Cole Palmer does best. Nicholas Jackson has gone up another level. I think they're a really, really, really top side. I don't think they're necessarily in a title race yet. I think it's too early to tell. But they must be so excited for this game because Spurs are in a bit of turmoil at the moment. In terms of the team, again, I do not know because we don't know who's going to be fit and who's not going to be fit. Part of me was hoping that we might see both Romero and Van de Ven back. I know that Ange said that Van de Ven's a bit away, but then they did that sort of cryptic post on social media where they posted all photos of Van de Ven. It could be absolute nonsense. I could be waffling here and, it mean nothing. But I was hoping that maybe both of them are being saved for that game and perhaps not as far away as we fear. But you simply don't know, and if they're not available, then we're really, really in trouble. I'd almost be tempted to bring one of the kids in that's a centre half, someone like an Alfie Dorrington who's back from, injury, or, a part of me would be almost tempted to say, well, actually, I'd rather an out-and-out centre-back play, throw them in at the deep end. I remember we did that a few years ago with Japhet Tanganga.
He doesn't do that. He doesn't do that.
No, but he doesn't do that. Exactly. He's not going to do that. So we'll probably end up with Gray at centre-back, and that could be a real problem. Or the other option is we try and play a back three and wing backs. But again, if you do that, then you're risking, if you get another injury, then you'd be struggling to even put a back four out. So I don't know. All I hope for is that Tottenham show up. But I also think that we have a responsibility as fans. I know it's a really, really tough time. We're all in a bad mood. But the atmosphere has been shocking all season. Roma, straight after City, it was terrible. It was terrible against Fulham. Even the North London derby, I thought, was terrible atmosphere. I know that there have been fan groups trying to work to build an atmosphere, and it's, the club don't seem to want to know. But all I hope for, and I certainly will, and I hope that everyone else there will, is when we show up on Sunday, that we make as much noise as possible, get behind the team, and I hope that as bad as things are, perhaps, maybe, just maybe, hopefully, that extra bit of support, that extra bit of fire in the belly of supporters, if we can turn all the negative energy into something to get behind the team at the weekend, maybe it can give them a bit of a lift when they really need it right now. And I completely understand the players have to give us something to cheer about, but this is a really big rival of ours in a must-win game. Our season, I already think top four is gone. But, just to get any form of European football or have any form of improvement come the end of the season on last year, I really think we need to use this fixture as a sort of full circle moment, really, and use it as a catalyst to build onto better things. And, I know it's going to be into the players' hands and the manager's hands, but all I hope is that the fans at least show up like they always do and, but really make some noise at the weekend and do our bit, because then the rest is out of our hands. But yeah, that's all I hope for, really. Don't know how the game's going to go. I'm not very confident at all. I live with 2 Chelsea fans as well, so that's going to be an incredibly fun week. You know, if we lose the game, yeah, we it cannot get worse than this. It really cannot get worse. And just saying that, I think of the Mick McCarthy video where he goes, "It can," and it really can. You know, it just feels like how many times do we say, "Oh, surely Spurs can't play worse than this," and they somehow manage to top it off. Look, this time it's got to be different. We've got to go and fight, and that's it, really. Even if we don't win the game, I want the players to give everything they have, show fight, you know. And we didn't see that tonight. We didn't see that against Fulham. It's got to be different this time.
Brian, your thoughts ahead of the Chelsea game?
We're going to get spanked. Absolutely. Listen, I am done with being a fan that goes, "Oh, do you know what? We're going to win. It's a good time to play them. We're going to win. We're at home. We're going to win." Because why should I have faith in my team when my team give me nothing to have faith in? Why should I sit here and say to myself, "Oh, it's a good time. We're at home. We're going to bounce back. We're going to learn from this. We're going to grow." There is that soulless Levy Bowl where there is no atmosphere. I hear more atmosphere from you incredible people, Chris, that go up and down this country and Europe. You get more noise in the Bournemouth away section today than you will in that white wall of silence. There's nothing in that stadium compared to the glorious, glorious White Hart Lane that will be a crescendo of noise, a hostile atmosphere. I don't see how a performance like this, when Chelsea last year were 7th or 8th and we were 5th, and we were laughing at Chelsea. We were laughing at them. Oh, yeah, we're now 10th. They're flying and scoring goals for fun. No injuries. We're injury depleted. How anyone can actually think this isn't going to be a... Listen, if you want to think we can win and we can turn it around, we did against City, but away. Maybe we can. But I'm sick and tired of saying, yeah, we're going to win this, we're going to win that. I can't see, unfortunately, anything more than an absolute spanking, in all honesty. And we've got an injury-ravaged team. And they've got players like Madueke at the moment is purring and is going to be running down that wing. You got, like I say, I mean, you just have to mention Cole Palmer. They're playing some great stuff. And I just can't see how we get a point, let alone 3. Let alone 3.
Brian, what are your expectations of the January transfer window?
Absolutely nothing. Nothing. Because if you look at it, if his job is on the line, if I'm not saying it is, does Daniel Levy say, "Here you go, here's my checkbook. Go spend money, but your job's on the line"? No, he won't. He'll more than likely do things like recall Ashley Phillips and say, rather than get it, we'll put a 19-year-old and say, "You go do this." The Korean, I can always get his name wrong, so if there's any Koreans watching, I'm not going to try and pronounce his name. He's coming in. I can't see us doing a sodding thing because I don't know if again, Ange's job is on the line, he gives Ange money. Right now, we don't even know if Ange is going to be in a job. And you see, and this is the thing as well. You have people in chat, I am saying in chats or on social media. We've become a football club now where our fan base care more about bitching at each other, getting one up on each other, going, "You were right, I was wrong. Yeah, he should have played," or "No," rather than focusing on the football pitch. If you want to look on that football pitch and you can see success or positivity, please come and show me where it is. Because right now, there is nothing, but this fan base is too concerned. We're getting one up on each other and calling each other out, whether you're bored in, bored out, manager in, manager out.
Why do you think it's like that, Brian?
Why?
Yeah.
Because this is what happens now. This is what happens now. We are so tapped, but you know where I'm going, the man at the top. Winning isn't a priority. If I'll say this to round it off. We moved to that stadium 5 years ago on the promise that we're moving there to compete with the big boys, pay the big wages, sign the big players. Season ticket prices for the loyal fans have gone up. Merchandise in the club shop has gone up. food and beverage in the club shop or in the stadium has gone up. Concerts and all of those, everything's going because it's a game-changing stadium. We're going to compete. And the reason we're going to compete is to pay the big wages and get the better players. Well, the wage bill has gone down. The quality of player has gone down. The wages we pay the manager has gone down. But everything else for the fans has gone up. There's only one man, and this will continue to happen until there is change. Because it will just be another manager. It'll be another project. Got to be patient. Got to give him time. You got to give him 4 windows. We don't give him 4 windows. It will keep going round and round and round. And this fan base will continue to fight with each other rather than care what's going on that football pitch.
Brian, what do you think the chances are of the board changing anytime soon? Because I don't think it's any secret that you are one of those fans that want the board replaced. You protested against them. Do you think there's any chance of that happening? Because, of course, they are looking for a minority stakeholder. But from what I understand, they're not looking to fully sell the club.
Nope. Listen, we're doomed. We're doomed until they sell it or until someone actually comes down and puts money down. Then we're doomed. It will continue to happen. And I've said this for 17 years. And we're here again. He's got us by the balls. I'm sick and tired of being patient. I'm sick and tired of being told we've got to wait. I'm sick and tired of having the excuse. I'm sick and tired of people saying negative when all I want is the best on the football pitch, which doesn't seem to be a problem. Doesn't seem to be an absolute must for this ownership. I'm sick and tired of everyone saying everything they want. The manager gets the sack. The manager comes in for criticism. The players come in for criticism. The fans come in for criticism. Everyone comes in for criticism except one person. And he's been here the whole time. But you can't say a bad word about him.
I've always said, Brian, and I'll always continue to say that whatever views anyone has, and of course we do have, a lot of different opinions on this channel. That's why we bring, lots of people on from different countries and, different opinions, because it's very good to hear everyone's opinions, but we all want the same thing. We all want success at the football club. And, I keep saying it. I hope that we're not very far away from it, because a club like Spurs, who have fantastic fans, who travel around all the world to watch our beloved club, and the trophies are way overdue. Brian, do you want to give us a score prediction for the Chelsea game, or should we leave that?
3-4-1 Chelsea.
Wow. Gareth, hey, and keep this short, please. I want to drive home in the next couple of minutes. So give us your thoughts on the Chelsea game, and feel free if you want to give us a score prediction. I don't mind if you don't want to.
Yeah, no, I think Brian was right about the concerts. Maybe Spurs need a concert to get some investment, like a Live Aid in the Spurs stadium. Maybe that'll be what we need to kick on, Brian. But on the Spurs game on Sunday, I'm going to the game, Chris. So I'm still looking forward to it. I love going over to the stadium, so I'm going to meet Josh for a pint too, and just be there, Chris, in case me and Josh are wrestling over the Spurs at the minute. But no, I think we will see a reaction. But unfortunately, I don't think we'll see a reaction enough to beat Chelsea. I think unfortunately we'll come up short. But I would definitely expect us to be better than we were tonight. But I think Chelsea will have too much for us, and I'll say Chelsea are going to win 2-1.
Josh, thank you so much for joining us this evening. I know it's very difficult talking about a defeat. Let's all hope for a miracle on Sunday to beat Chelsea, but they are on fire right now, it is fair to say. It's going to be a very busy week coming up because, of course, we face Rangers, as I said, on Thursday in the Europa League, followed by Southampton in the Premier League on Sunday. Games are coming thick and fast. Of course, we're in Carabao Cup action soon against Manchester United as well. The games are coming thick and fast. But thank you so much for your involvement yet again, Josh. I know you're always a fantastic guest on here. Where can people find you on social media?
At Josh Hughes TV on X. It's it's not that difficult coming on after a defeat, because I feel like I've come on after a defeat far more than I've come on after a win, just as it happens. But yeah, hopefully better things around the corner regardless of who the manager is or whatever happens at the club. But one thing I just want to say very quickly is I've seen a lot of comments about this tonight, which is ordinary fans, good fans, are drifting away from the football club. Now, I don't know whether that's a combination of the prices of everything or disgruntlement. I know, Brian, you're another one that doesn't put a penny into the football club, and I've got a lot of respect for you, sticking to your values on that. But, please, as a fan base on Sunday, let's get together and get behind the team. We really need an atmosphere. We've not had one this season. We really, really do.
Brian, as per usual, you've been a great guest. Thank you so much for your input, and I look forward to having you on the channel very soon. Where can people find you?
Tottenham on Tour will be back in the new year. I'm always with the boys on We Are Tottenham TV. And like I said, Chris, always a pleasure to come on. Thanks for letting me come on and be able to speak freely and openly about anything and everything. And it's always a pleasure to be on a stream with you, buddy.
Thank you, Brian. Look forward to seeing you again soon. And Gareth, I'll probably see you Sunday at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Chelsea with a pint in your hand. Where can people find you other than that?
Well, that might be the only good thing about Sunday, but we'll see. I'd love to be sitting there at 6:30 with another pint celebrating a Tottenham victory. So let's hope that's the case. People can find me on Twitter at Gareth Hotspurs. You'll see plenty of stuff on there regarding Spurs. And you can also find me on here quite a lot. I think I'm on for the Rangers game next week as well. And just thanks so much for your comments. So many good comments as well tonight. Thanks for your input. Some really good ones on there tonight about myself. So that's always good when you see people enjoying you being on. And obviously thanks to you, Chris, for having me on again. Good to be on with Josh. Good to be on with Brian. Let's go on Sunday, boys. Let's get 3 points. Turn the season around. Come on, you Spurs.
Can I just say thank you so much to Brian, Josh, and Gareth, and thank you so much to everyone who's watched this and listened to this podcast and are with us, gone midnight here in Bournemouth. And apologies to anyone who has put a comment in today and we've not read it out. This podcast could have literally gone on for hours. As I said, I had 8 pages of notes, haven't even touched them. So this podcast could have lasted for absolute hours. I'll be back tomorrow on Friday evening with the Chaser, Sean Wallace, of course, Chelsea fan, giving you a match preview ahead of Sunday's game. I'm sure he will have a huge smile on his face right now. And I have a lot to say about Spurs and our inconsistent form. But hopefully I'll see you there Friday evening. And of course, we'll be back again for the Spurs Chat podcast after the Chelsea game. Hopefully we are all smiling Sunday afternoon. I'll tell you what, it will be a hard watch and a hard podcast if we haven't won that game on Sunday. But as I say, thanks for watching. Thanks for all of your incredible support. We'll see you on the next one. Come on, you Spurs.